Hello, everyone, and welcome to Building Content Area Literacy in the Secondary Classroom. This was a session that was presented at Teacher Leader Summit this summer, and it was a very interactive session. So I have links included throughout. I highly encourage you watching this as a replay to go ahead and pull those documents up ahead of time and to engage in the documents so you get the full experience, because it really helps to understand the learning that's in this presentation. Pull together another teacher or another leader to work with you so that you can engage and really experience the supports that are built out here. So just a brainstorm I want you to think about. What are your biggest challenges with content area literacy in the secondary classroom? And some of the things that were shared with me while presenting were things like students in the secondary classroom are not necessarily all on the appropriate reading level. They struggle sometimes with vocabulary or concepts that are in our content areas. These are rich and sometimes complex ideas they're struggling with. So this presentation and these supports that were built out are meant and intended to help remediate those areas or to help students anchor. All of the supports that are included in the literacy library under Louisiana Believes were built by me with the intention of using these supports within your curriculum, to help students engage and learn the content area context in a whole group session. So my name is Natalie Kleber, and my role here at the Louisiana Department of Education is middle school and high school literacy PD specialist. Just some more about me too. I've also taught middle school ELA, middle school social studies. I've written curriculum for social studies. I have been an instructional coach or master teacher for kindergarten through 8th grade. I've done some work in high school as well. So these supports were built by me. Specifically in my work as a coach, that I saw that some different things that really could help content area teachers and help students access these texts. So our objectives, we have 3 today, are I can define content area literacy. I can explain how content area literacy skills can improve proficiency within my class. I can implement at least one strategy from this presentation to improve literacy skills and proficiency within my class. So there are currently 6 supports that are available in the literacy library. Today, we're going to use 2. I'm going to model 2 for you. And then I have another 6 that are launching this coming fall. So our agenda, talk about what literacy in middle school is. Then we're going to discuss what content area literacy is and the impact it can have. We're going to experience those 2 strategies I was telling you about, and we're going to have some closure. So let's get our brains ready for this learning. So in the United States, public schools deliver 85% or more of their curriculum by reading textbooks, whiteboards, worksheets, and computer screens. Students must read to do well. It matters little what else they learn in elementary school if they do not learn to read at grade level. Even math depends on reading. There are far more words than numbers in math books. And this comes from Fielding, Kerr, and Roser. What thoughts come to mind when I read this to you? And some things that resonated with my attendees at Summit really came a lot from the math and science fields and the fact that students are engaging in this. I know just looking at my science teachers that I've had in the past, they were experts in their field. They knew their science content. They were so excited about it and excited for those students to learn. But it's a text heavy, especially the assessment is very text heavy. And so how do we help students that are not on grade level engage with the text on their own independently? And so that's what this work today speaks to. So literacy in middle and high school. For those of you not familiar with Scarborough's reading rope, this is Scarborough's reading rope. And Scarborough is an expert in the field, and she says that there's 2 main components: language comprehension and word recognition. And as these weave together, as students become increasingly strategic and increasingly automatic, these skills, these strands, develop into skilled readers. So in middle and high school, we hope that students come to us with that bottom portion at mastery level, or at least at the proficiency level. So we're hoping that they have phonological awareness skills, decoding, and sight recognition. This is where students are just learning to read. Can they understand the letter sound correspondence? Can they recognize when they read a word what that word even is? It's not necessarily definitions yet. It's just being able to read. So we're hoping that they come to us with this. We know this is not always the case, but for the purposes of this session, we're going to assume that they have most of these pieces in place. Our work in middle school really happens at this upper level in this language comprehension piece. And there's been a ton of work done, Natalie Wexler especially, around the background knowledge strand and understanding that if students have background knowledge, they're able to engage and understand the text at a higher level. But there's also a lot of other strands that are tied into this language comprehension. So vocabulary, understanding the breadth, the depth, the precision, and the different links that are created between these words and the content. Language structures, syntax and semantics. This is your grammar. This is the semantics of, does this word really, is this phrase really, is it black and white, or is there some intended meaning here that we're missing? Verbal reasoning, can students make inferences? Do they understand metaphors? And literacy knowledge, print concepts, genres. Do students understand the purpose for that document as it was written? Do they understand how to extract meaning differently from a menu as they would from a literary work? So our main work is to increase their strategy within this upper strand in middle school. And so the content literacy docs are really working within this upper strand to help develop students' proficiency. So literacy in middle and high school, what even does literacy in middle and high school look like? What is it? Literacy is definitely more than just reading. Our goal is to improve speaking, listening, reading, and writing in all of our content areas in the middle and upper grades. And if you have students, especially with exceptionalities or English language learners, all of these components become so important, because even if there is not complete proficiency within reading, or if there's not complete proficiency within writing, if we're still developing their speaking and listening, their language comprehension can still develop, even with some of those skills missing in between. Consider the opportunities presented in your curriculum to highlight different areas of the rope, as mentioned before. So maybe it's just a simple mini lesson. Maybe it's a grammar thing, and maybe we have a complex sentence, and helping students to understand, hey, we have a comma and here. These are two thoughts in this one sentence, and let's think about and process this as two different thoughts. Also, engage all students in the classroom in all aspects of literacy, no matter what their capabilities are, having the expectation that they can all engage, and then asking ourselves as teachers and professionals, what can we do to help them engage at that level? So what is content area literacy now? So content area literacy skills involve basic content comprehension and writing skills. It's just basically learning to read and comprehend and to write about it. Not necessarily any of those upper level skills in literacy, but just basic comprehension and writing, okay? Until the fundamental content literacy skills are mastered, there's a need to build competence here before moving on. And I'm going to tell you in a second what we can move on to. This is our end goal. Skills such as partner reading, analyzing rubrics, and annotating text are crucial to proficiency before moving on to more demanding literacy skills. So I made this graphic to help you understand disciplinary literacy is something that this word or these terms have been thrown around a lot recently. People are using them. I want to help you understand what the difference is between content area literacy and disciplinary literacy. So content literacy, like I just mentioned, is those basic comprehension and writing skills, the skills that are embedded in Scarborough's reading rope, and they're used across all of our subject areas. It's in reading, it's in math, it's in science, it's in social studies. Then we have disciplinary literacy. This is the knowledge and ability used by those who create and communicate knowledge within these disciplines. So you hear things like reading like a historian or thinking like a scientist. And all those students can definitely think like a scientist without being able to decode and read every word. We want to build these more basic literacy skills before we just live in disciplinary literacy. They need to have both of those happening at the same time. Or we'll talk about a graphic in just a second, how it looks. But both of them involve reading, writing, listening, speaking, and both of them involve text. So this is a graphic made by Joan Sedita, who is the Keys to Literacy guru. She does a lot of work. She's an expert in specifically adolescent literacy, and she's given us permission to use this graphic. So at the top, we have disciplinary literacy, we just talked about is those advanced reading and writing to learn, specialized reading strategies unique to those subject areas. Then we have content literacy, and this is reading and writing to learn. So vocabulary comprehension, writing strategies across all subjects. Both of these should be happening within our tier 1 instruction. So all of the strategies that I'm talking about today are used within the curriculum. They're just teacher moves that you use alongside of that. And then we also ask ourselves what accommodations or modifications or scaffolds can we use to ensure struggling learners can access that same content. Then you have below that basic literacy skills. And these are our students that are way behind reading level. These are students who are still struggling or need more support learning to read and write. This is intervention for basic skills such as word study, fluency, vocabulary, comprehension, and writing. These are students that need to be plugged into some type of tier 2 or tier 3 remediation to help develop those basic skills. Because they definitely, if they have trouble here, are going to definitely have trouble engaging in content literacy and disciplinary literacy. So what's the impact of content area literacy? Well, 73% of 8th grade students fall below the proficient level in their ability to read and comprehend the meaning of text at their grade level. And this is according to 2019 NAEP data for Louisiana specifically. And so the implications of this are that students need these supports. They need ideas and help in their content areas in order to engage with the text. And that's what those content area literacy supports that I made that's why they were developed. Students need to extract information and meaning from content area text. They're very complex. Reading ability is a key predictor of achievement in mathematics and science. Students need literacy support in accessing the information so that they can become proficient within their disciplines. If we want them to think like a scientist, once they get to the independent level and they're taking an assessment or just engaging in an independent part of the lesson, they have to be able to engage with that text, whether it's a graphic, whether it's a lab report, whether it's a scientific journal. They have to be able to engage and extract information from that in order to think like a scientist if we're not giving that to them as their teacher. So I mentioned that I built out some supports. These are the reading strategies that are built out so far and the ones that are coming. So right now available on the portal are whole class read aloud, partner reading, which we're going to engage in together today, independent reading, and annotating. All 4 of those are available right now. Coming this fall will be vocabulary supports and some different things you can do within vocabulary in your content area to help students engage with the text and understanding it. These are some writing strategies. Currently available on the portal are using rubrics. And then today together, we're going to use using student exemplars as part of the writing process. Coming this fall are writing frames, writing summaries, and writing for a purpose. And these are all things to really help develop, not just writing, but to develop reading comprehension. If your students are needing some more support with reading comprehension, these writing strategies are a great way to do that. And then listening and speaking coming this fall are a discussion tracker for you to use as you engage in class discussions, Socratic seminars, and fishbowl discussions. So now we're going to engage in a student experience. If you have not already done so, please click on the link, The Treasure of Lemon Brown, because you're going to actually become a student. I'm going to be your teacher, and we're going to put our student and teacher hats on in just a second. All right, so everybody has their passage in front of them, The Treasure of Lemon Brown. And now I'm saying, good morning, students. And you're telling me, good morning, Ms. Cleaver. Students, today we're going to partner read The Treasure of Lemon Brown. And the purpose of us partner reading today is so that you can see those words and you can hear them and you can start to build your fluency by multiple readings of it. So you're going to see the word, you're going to hear the word, and you're going to become more familiar with that word as you see the word again. So you can read it independently. This is also going to help to improve your listening and speaking skills, not just in Ms. Cleaver's class, but outside in other classes and in the real world. Okay, so that's why we're partner reading today. Our purpose for reading is to analyze Greg's perception of his father and Lemon Brown by making evidence-based inferences. So as we're reading together today, just start to listen for things that you hear, because we're going to do more than one reading about Greg's perception of his father. So just start thinking when you hear those words, start keying into that, and we'll go ahead and highlight those in a second. All right, so now in my class, I would have already partnered people that are on mixed ability levels, a higher and a lower student, but also partnering people with the same native language so that they can help each other as we're reading through. And now we're going to actually engage in this. I'm going to model with another student what this looks and sounds like before I release the class to go ahead and start partner reading. So if you were in person with me, you would actually be listening to me and another participant do this. Okay, so we've numbered our paragraphs. I'm asking the students, how do you know when you get to another paragraph? As we're partner reading today, we're going to go ahead and take turns. Partner A is going to read paragraph 2. Partner B is going to, partner A is going to read paragraph 1. Partner B is going to read paragraph 2, and we're going to swap off each time we see a new paragraph. Okay, so Ms. Cleaver is going to start. The dark sky filled with angry, swirling clouds reflected Greg Bridley's mood as he sat on the stoop of his building. His father's voice came to him again, first reading the letter the principal had sent to the house, then lecturing endlessly about his poor efforts in math. Partner B. Okay, now partner B would start reading together, and we would have this experience together so the whole presentation can see, and then when you're a teacher, when the whole class can see. I'm going to tell them that we're going to model how to read at a level 1 so that everybody around us can hear, and that as volumes get higher, Ms. Cleaver is going to go ahead and stop us, bring us back to level 1 so that we can start again. It's really important that you model the expectations very clearly, though, and it's really important that you draw attention to what should really be done. Your partner's eyes should be on their page the whole time. Your eyes should be on the page the whole time. You should be listening for these words and these letter sound correspondences. Okay. So what were some teacher moves that you saw me do as the teacher? Okay, well, if you were in person with me, we would share back and forth, but just so let me share out some. So some things that I did was I modeled clearly expectations, not just for the content, not just for what they were going to get out of it and Greg's father, but I modeled expectations for what partner reading should look like. It's really important that you, the teacher, understand, or you, the leader, understand that the intention is not just to understand what the story's about. It really is, especially in the middle and high level, to develop fluency, to develop the correspondence between sight and sound, and to work on hearing each other read orally and listening for that. Some student moves should have been that students were tracking the text as they read. They were taking turns reading. And they were really developing their, like I said, their fluency and understanding as they see that word more and more often, they recognize it when they see it. If they're reading science, something science about photosynthesis, and they're an English language learner, and they're reading a passage with a partner read, and they've seen the word photosynthesis 4 times, they've heard the word photosynthesis 4 times, as they read independently, they're going to get more familiar with that. If students just have their head down or they're looking around as you're doing a read aloud, you're only helping them to understand, just hear what you're reading. You're not helping them to develop their literacy skills. So something as simple as a partner read really has a lot of implications later. So my last question is, how will this practice done this way affect student outcomes? So what's intended is that as they do this partner read more and more, as they see the passage and hear the passage more than once, they're developing their proficiency with reading, content area text, they're developing their understanding, and they're developing all those different 4 areas of literacy: reading, writing, listening, and speaking. As students become more proficient with their reading and understanding, they're more capable of writing about it. Sometimes we try, oftentimes, a school focus, as many times as I've been a master teacher, a deficit is often writing. But it's not necessarily the writing that's lacking, it's the understanding so that they can write is often the problem. And so if students are better able to read and understand, they're better able to write. And so these content area supports, literacy supports, are really intended to help improve their proficiency there. So now these are the steps that I went through in doing this. And I'm going to go ahead and pull up what the partner reading support looks like so that you can see it. And they're all of my supports are structured the same way. At the very top, you see ELA, math, science, and social studies. It shows when that support would apply. It shows you who could use the support and the purpose. And one of the most important things that I just can't express enough is communicating the purpose of the support with the students. In middle and high, their intrinsic motivation is not what it was in elementary. In kindergarten, they're like, yes, Ms. Kleber, I love you, Ms. Kleber, you're beautiful, Ms. Kleber. In middle and high, they don't think any of this is very important, or most don't think this is very important anymore. If they know the importance and they know why they're doing that, they're going to engage in this at a much deeper level. So it's really important that you communicate the purpose. And then lastly, I have the process that you're going to go through as the teacher to roll this out. The process is important for you as a leader, if you're a leader watching this, so that as you go in and you're doing walkthroughs of your classes or walkthroughs of different schools, you understand what you should be seeing there too. And then lastly, this is so important. I know I'm successful when. Stop. You don't have to keep doing the support over and over and over again if you see these things happening. These are the things that you know you're successful when these things are happening. And then additional considerations. If you have students with exceptionalities or additional needs in the classroom, these are some other things that you might want to consider as you're going through that. Okay, let's jump back in. So now we're going to engage in using student exemplars as part of the writing process. This is another support that's built. It's in the writing domain. So let's go ahead and jump in. Before we do this though, go ahead and pause this and read Tough Issues. I have the link down there at the bottom, located on page 170 of the 7th grade social studies scope and sequence to prepare. It's a very short passage, but it just kind of shows, I tried to pick an ELA example, a science example, a social studies example, excuse me, and I'll have some more math and science examples coming out too, just so you can see what this looks like in different content areas, okay? So now my teacher hat's back on, your student hat is back on, you've read the passage, and now it's time to go ahead and jump into the support. All right, class, so today we're going to go ahead and use a student exemplar so that you can become more proficient with your writing. Specifically today, we're going to focus on writing a claim. What does an exemplary claim look like? And how can you duplicate this claim again later on your own, or in just a second on your own? It's really important that you as the student see what good writing looks like so that you can duplicate it. But it's also important for you to see what my criteria are when grading so you know how to achieve the level that you're trying to achieve. Okay, so it's going to help you become more proficient with your writing today and in your writing outside of Ms. Kleber's class as you're writing claims in all your other classes. Okay, so our question that we're going to answer today is, what was a major challenge at the Constitutional Convention and why? And as you were reading your passage yesterday, I asked you to go ahead and annotate for the different challenges that they faced. This is just one challenge that was in the passage. So I want you to start thinking about, as we go through this, yours and how this would apply when you're writing your claim in just a second. So our exemplary claim is this: the Constitutional Congress experienced a major challenge because they agreed to not only revise the Articles of Confederation, but constructed a whole new framework. This was a major challenge because it was not originally agreed upon by the Congress and even led to some delegates leaving. Okay, so as we looked at this exemplary claim, and I'm going to ask you to write your claim in a minute, I want us to think about these questions so that it can help you think through this. So when you have to do it on your own, you're able to. So the first question is, how does this claim fully respond to the question? And when I'm doing this in a session or when I'm doing this in my classroom, I have a piece of chart paper up and I'm writing the student responses down, or I'm writing it on my interactive whiteboard and I'm leaving it up. So when it's time for the students to go ahead and write their claim in a second, they're able to refer back to these questions and refer back to these steps. Okay, so I'm just going to pull up real quick a Microsoft Word document so we can think through this. So how does this claim fully respond to the question? I would be probing the class right now for responses. As they respond, if they're not getting everything that I need them to get, I'm going to go ahead and maybe think about asking them another question to probe them and lead them there. So this claim fully responds to the question because the student responded to both parts of the question. Okay. They also fully explained their answer in the claim. It was not vague. It was very specific. Their answer was very specific. And depending on the levels of your class, I'm also doing a think aloud at the same time. So for instance, when I pull my little passage back up, my little claim back up, I'm saying, okay, I know they were specific because they didn't just say they said the Constitutional Congress. And when they say because, I'm pulling, they agreed upon by Congress and even led to some delegates leaving. This was a major issue. Why was this a challenge? It was a challenge because they left. Okay, so you're using that think aloud as you need to as well. The second question, what steps might the student have used when constructing this claim? This is probably the most important piece of this because your students with exceptionalities especially don't understand the thought process, or they would already be doing it. So if they see the process, they're able to duplicate it on their own, okay? So the first thing they did, probably, the student probably broke down what the question was asking. The second thing was that they annotated where the answer was located in the passage. The third thing is that they answered the question as specifically and precisely as they could. And I would define those terms if they didn't understand what specific or precise meant. And then lastly, they probably went back and reread their answer to ensure all parts were answered. And again, probe your students if they're not giving you all of the answers that they want, making sure this process is very clear so then when you release them, they understand what it is. What are some qualities of this claim statement that make it a great claim statement? Well, let's go back and see. So we said that it was specific. That really is a quality that's very important, and that it's precise. It precisely answered the question. It has a major challenge identified, and it clearly explains why. Okay, so I'm not going to go ahead and type for the purposes of time, but if this was me in my class, we need to go back and write specific, all those things. And how can I duplicate this claim? I can duplicate this claim by going back and looking at these steps. And like I said, just one more time reiterating, I leave this up as students work through it. And I go through as much of the think aloud as I need to help my students become proficient. So if they're even struggling with finding the answer, I'm going to model that and think through that. I'm going to pull the passage up on the whiteboard. I'm going to have my question up. What were the major challenges and why? I'm going to model myself annotating where the answer is, how I know it's the answer, as much of that as they need. The last thing before we go into teacher and student actions is that you want to pick the part of writing that your students need. They might not need the claim. They might be proficient with claim writing. They might need their reasoning. You might want to select the reasoning in here, or they might need the conclusion. You want to select the parts that you know your class needs. What's the need? Okay. So what were some teacher moves? I probed with questions. I read the exemplar out to them. I probed for answers, and I gave them a process, or helped them come up with a process they could use to duplicate it. Some student moves were prior to the strategy, they would have had to read and annotate for the answer. They definitely had to use some critical thinking to think through how that student did that. And how will this practice done this way affect student outcomes? You're going to see students, because they see what good writing looks like, they're going to produce high quality writing much more often and much more easily. And I've always taught very diverse groups of students, diverse classes. I've taught special education. I've definitely taught newcomers or new students new to the country, very diverse classes. And I will tell you that for all of my students, all of them grew. I had very high expectations of all of them. But when you have these mixed ability classes, it becomes beautiful because all of the students grow. The masteries can push past mastery. Your approaching basic and unsatisfactory students are seeing the high quality thinking, reading and writing and listening, and they're able to push themselves too. And it really just helps students grow in the content area. Okay, so again, this is the student experience. This is the steps that we took in doing this. And here is what using student exemplars looks like. ELA, math, science, and social studies again. Who could use the support, the purpose. Once again, so important to communicate that purpose. I keep saying that because it's so important. And then the process. And then I have built out possible guiding questions for you to use with your exemplar. So once you have your exemplar, you need to come up with some questions, and you can use one question, two. I used 4 today. These are some questions you can pull from that use the different rubrics that are aligned to the different content areas. But if you have a question that's really important, feel free in your instruction to add it. These are just a jumping off point. These are things that are definitely going to help them score better because they're connected to the rubrics that are in use, but you're not limited to these questions. Choose the questions that you think are important. and then the rest of your process and additional considerations, and I know I'm successful when. Okay, so let's jump back in. So I just want you to think back on the 2 activities we just participated in. Can you see yourself using them or coaching others to use them? Unanimously, both sessions that I presented on said yes. I'm hoping that you feel the same way. What do you think will change in student outcomes if we use these strategies? I keep going back to that because everything I do has student outcomes at the focus. I'm trying to improve student outcomes. We're working to help students become more proficient. We're helping to empower teachers and us as professionals to become more proficient in our teaching. And this is just going to have all of those intended benefits. And then what questions do you still have? If you still have questions, I want to hear from you. If you want to have me model this for your district or your school, I would love to come. You can find us at Louisiana Literacy at la.gov. Happy to come and help you do that. And we're constantly adding new resources to the Louisiana Library. Some of the resources that we currently have are, I've added an entire series for middle and high school. Here are the PowerPoints, and then under them, just like you're watching this one, are the webinars that you can go back and look at. And this is just on the science of reading and different parts to help them becoming more proficient. Those different strands of the rope that you saw me talking about at the beginning. And then down here, instruction, intervention, and extension is where you can find all the supports that I talked about today. We also have building literacy skills at home for middle and high school. And these are different things that parents or caregivers can do to help improve proficiency at home with literacy. And just some different references. So I hope you enjoy that. If you have any questions, like I said, please don't hesitate to reach out. Louisiana Literacy at la.gov. Thank y'all so much for tuning in.